Hi, today I want to talk to you about selling a business that has a dominant client in its books. Just to set a bit of background, you'll know that Australia is a fairly concentrated economy. For instance, in our share market, you hear about the ASX 200. The top 4 companies in that list of companies, that list of 200 companies, account for 1/4 of the capitalisation of the ASX 200. So, imagine trying to diversify a portfolio if you're just owning Australian shares. It's going to be very difficult. And incidentally, of the top 7 companies, 5 of them are financial. So clearly the share market in Australia is a very concentrated market. In another area, you look at the dollars spent on food and groceries in Australia. 2 out of every 3 of those dollars are spent in 2 supermarket brands. So if you're looking for genuine choice in what you can buy to eat, for instance, it's pretty hard when you've got 2 supermarket brands to choose from. Another area in Australia is media ownership. It's quite concentrated. So in the end, it's got to mean that we don't have the diversification of views that would be really, really healthy for us as a democracy. And where does this come into effect when we're talking about small to medium enterprises? What I've found quite often in Australia, this concentration ends up meaning that there may be one customer that accounts for 30 to 60% of turnover in a business, and therefore a huge amount of the profit. So you can imagine being a buyer thinking, I want to buy this business, but look at the risk inherent in its purchase. If you lose that one customer, suddenly the business runs a risk of collapsing. You've just paid too much for it. So what do? People look for solutions to this by, for instance, having contracts in place, all right, where the business that you're going to purchase has a contract with the major customer. What I found is the problem with this approach, or with this, is that quite often those contracts don't exist. If they do, they roll over every year. And also, if you sell your business, that customer usually retains the right to inspect or to talk to the new buyer and determine whether they really want to be a customer of the new buyer. So there's an inherent risk in there on the part of the seller, all right, as well. You've got to go and show your buyer of your business to your major customer. And that can be a pretty scary thing to do, and I find most people are very reluctant to do that. Most sellers are very reluctant to do that. So how do you overcome this inherent riskiness of a business that has a dominant client? In a pinch, you can't. That risk is always going to be there. What you've got to try and do is share the risk. Share the risk between the buyer and the seller of that business. And a neat way of doing that is via earn-outs. Now, I don't want to talk about earn-outs too much, because if you Google earn-outs, you'll find all you need to know about that. But that's a cunning way of being able to share the risk of this dominant client when someone is coming along to buy your business. If you transact it properly, if you hang around for a little while, not only do you get hopefully the bulk of your money up front, but you get more rewards as you show that the client will stay on. There is also something that you can do to minimize or maybe mitigate the risk, all right, and that is you make the business more transparent. Now, the catch here is that transparency is in the eye of the buyer, all right. So how do you find a buyer who will look at your business in a manner that mitigates the risk because of a higher transparency? Generally, you've got to find someone who's a competitor of yours. They already know that industry. Maybe not a competitor, someone supplementary in that industry. So when they look at the risk in that business, they have generally a better understanding of what they are than someone cold, someone who has nothing to do with your industry, with your business will have. That can also be scary because, imagine talking to your competitors to say, look, I want to sell my business, do you want to buy it? If you do that wrongly, they'll just come and take the business away from you. Well, that's a risk. But if you do it well, it introduces a set of risks that is manageable. And generally, a good broker should help you do that. They are able to break the risk up, so you can sort of consume it in bite-sized pieces that won't choke you as a seller, and get a good result for you, especially if you mix that up with the idea of earn-outs. I've had a few of those businesses in the last year or so where there's been a dominant client, and what I've found is they take a fair bit more engagement than usual in order to get the sale across, but they've also been one of the more, or some of the more satisfying transactions I've done over the last year or two as well. So there's always plenty of hope. If you've got a business that's making money, looks like a business, even if it's got this dominant client, there's ways and means of overcoming the problem to a buyer. If you want to have a chat about how we can do that, a phone call or an email, no problem at all. I'd look forward to hearing from you. My name's Harry Notaras and I'm from ABS Business Sales. All the best.